10,000 individuals burn through 285 years, and fortification reasoning Earth is harmed until one individual goes up to check record. A period comes on Earth when individuals end up in a huge 140-story dugout, yet who fabricated it and why they are compelled to conceal nobody realizes. All data has been obliterated one day. Anyway, a man heads outside and finds the stunning truth. A bigger number of inquiries, then responds to Sheriff Holston, removes his identification, puts things together, and ventures out onto the Haven's displays. Nobody realizes the reason why individuals are here, who constructed it, why the rest of the world has died, and when it will be protected. To go external in his office, Holston composes a letter, locks the entryway behind him, and never looks back. He tells his surprise the couple is congratulated when Gloria, an eccentric elderly woman, approaches their table and promises to help Eliso in. But Holston drives her away. How can a childless woman help? Later, a doctor removes a contraceptive capsule from Allison. Now she has a chance to become a mother. Moreover, this is their last attempt. Days begin to count down, but the couple achieves no results. One day, Allison posts an article about deleted files on old storage devices, breaking the ban on restoring relics she doesn't found with relics of the past to the mines. Holston requests that she submit to the law advance notice that, assuming that a small bunch of violators choose to take a gander at the rest of the world and open the trapdoor, the sanctuary will be ill-fated. Allison contradicts her better half, yet has different concerns as she actually can't get pregnant. Opportunity Day shows up, a vacation celebrated after the last defiance. The dugout's chairman is worried that the Ixter NL focal point is turning out to be progressively messy. From one perspective, this is great, demonstrating no hoodlums among the occupants who are conveyed to clean it, yet on the others ought to see the rest of the world in the mean time. Gloria draws Allison into her room, getting some information about broken servers and consumed books, questioning the revolutionaries did it. She illuminates Allison that she won't be permitted to have kids. That very day, Allison gets a work request for the city software engineer George's studio. He welcomes her energetically. Having G read her post and shows her an old hard drive he can't open, Allison takes on the errand. The chairman conveys a discourse commending the safe houses regulations. Precisely, quite a while back, they disallowed the dissident from making the ways for the rest of the world. The renegades obliterated all data about previous existence. However, the establishing legends saved the remainders of civilization. Allison figures out how to open the drive, yet she is scared and passes on requesting that George obliterate the artifact. Yet he looks at the sanctuary's whole arrangement and finds a strange passage at the extremely base. Allison joins her kinsmen in respecting their predecessors by sending off sky lamps, yet her psyche is distracted with ongoing occasions. The following day, Allison visits Gloria to realize the reason why she was denied youngsters. Later, she goes to when George opens one of the files and asks him to show her everything. The two are stunned. So this is what's outside. When Holston returns home, Allison receives an invitation from a doctor, but she never shows up. Instead, Holston rushes home and finds his wife sitting at the table. She tells him that people like her will never be allowed to have children because the leaders want obedient and submissive citizens. She also shows him the contraceptive capsule she cut out herself. The Dr. Holston peruses the customary goodbye words and cries as he hears his significant other's last words, where she admits her adoration for him prior to venturing outside. Many individuals watch her on the screens. She shows up on the screen and cleans the focal point. Then she grins at her shocked spouse and strolls toward an evaporated tree on the slope. However, prior to arriving at it, she falls and stays unmoving. 2 years after the fact, the sheriff learns stomach muscle out the demise of software engineer George, who moved to the lower level with the technicians after Allison's exile. The sheriff looks at the departed body and goes to the lower level to converse with an observer, Juliet, presently sitting in a correctional facility. Anticipating his exile, he admits that it was in the wake of meeting her that he chose to find his better half, since he is certain the figure outside isn't Allison the day of exile showed up. Holston strolls down the long passage as individuals assemble in the eating lobby to observe the sheriff's last minutes. When he ventures outside, he understands the sheriff's death excite the people, but the law enforcers calm the population as Juliet descends below, screaming in anger, feeling deceived by the sheriff. Later, Juliet confides in her friend repairwoman Marta that she is sure George was killed because he wanted to show her something during their last meeting that evening. He attended a repairman's party and arranged a meeting with her, but instead of George, she found a pouch with an unclear relic inside and a note asking Shocked, she revealed the programmer's homicide along with the sheriff. They reviewed the crime location, and the young lady was certain George couldn't willfully leave his own life. Everything happened somewhere down in the evening, and no one but dispatches might have been observers. Holston saw her watch, yet Juliet guaranteed him it was anything but an artifact. Later, Juliet shows Holston a toy left by George, yet she gives the note in a compressed structure. Then she drives him to the least levels, where the sheriff had never been and didn't actually envision this spot existed. The lady opens a mysterious entry, the walls of which are covered with compositions and drawings made by the people who resided here before the uprising. The pair plummets an iron flight of stairs into a tremendous cavern underneath the dugout. Juliet turns on the light, and Holston studies the monster machine remaining in the cavern. Clearly this is an underground joint with which obscure predecessors made this sanctuary. It was here that Juliet originally acknowledged how little they had some awareness of the haven and its creatures. The pair plunges to the machine where George had set up a residing space and put away the found relics. Unexpectedly, Juliet sees a wire extending someplace past the stage. She hauls it out and tracks down a pack with a hard drive inside. Close to it are notes made in Allison's penmanship, which the sheriff quickly remembers. It turns out his better half knew all that was occurring, yet expressed nothing to him. Holston requests the relics be shipped off the heater before anybody learns of their reality. Yet Juliet objects, which soberingly affects the sheriff. He admits that he can't go through the eating lobby on the grounds that the window shows Allison's cadaver under the tree. He encourages the lady to stay silent while he figures out reality. Subsequent to hearing the story, Marta shakes her head. Then Juliet concedes that she didn't show Holston all that the note had a continuation. George composed that he had found what he was searching for, yet it is multiple times more perilous than anything before. Juliet passes on, wishing to remain alive. The lady reviews her last discussion with George when he playfully admitted that the link groups on the Consolidate would assist him with getting back to the past on the grounds that the exit from the dugout is submerged. He intends to swim in it. Clutching the rope, the lady goes to the cavern and, bringing the rope, slips it down to the actual surface of the water at the machine's base, looming over the chasm. Juliet chooses not to gamble with it and gets back to the stage, recollecting her departed companion, and afterward puts on his watch. In the first part of the day, City Hall leader Ruth and M set off on their everyday shelter adjusts. Juliet awakens to the vibration of dishes, a definite indication of a generator breakdown, and races to her working environment. In the meantime, Mars sees that Rose Canteen is spilling and gives her his showing up at the scene. Juliet demands a total generator closure. As though it separates, it can't be fixed. The underground haven would essentially die. Ruth and Mars meet with Bernard the top of the dugouts at Area AD. The second individual after the chairman, Bernard, isn't excited about Juliet's bid for sheriff. She took channel tape for her administration's needs. Boss adjudicator Glades is likewise against it, yet Holston picked her after the discussion. Ruth and Mars head to the center level where the chairman customarily visits babies. Then, at that point, chats with Dr. Nicholson, Juliet's dad, who says his girl wound up underneath on the grounds that she cherished mechanics from youth. Yet, they don't keep a relationship. After the discussion, Groove H and Marn go to lunch. The man admits he is prepared to resign and unobtrusively live with her. However, at that point, Judge Sims' collaborator shows up with his own possibility for sheriff. In the meantime, the shaking begins again underneath, and Chairman Ruth, to shipping off the site of the breakdown, observes Juliet at work, after which she meets with her and offers her the offerer's position. Juliet rejects, yet the chairman hands her Holston sheriff identification left explicitly for her. Juliet tracks down an etching on the rear of the identification, and AGRES, to take the work, yet prior to leaving she should fix the generator, which requires closing it down briefly. The shelter reverberations with an advance notice that unnerves the individuals. Juliet clarifies for her partners what precisely is broken and how to fix it, yet they have just an hour to do so. Obscurity falls in the shelter. The generator is halted outside. Boards, eliminated repairmen, are lifted to the breakdown site. Juliet finds the wrecked edge, connects it, and lets it down. The rest should be fixed nearby. Ruth and M&S stress over a potential mishap on the off chance that the generator can't be fixed. Groundwater will rise, yet will unavoidably die. Ruth admits she is prepared to leave her situation and settle close to a retired person. Marnes kisses her. The pressure at the generator site raises. Juliet needs to enter the machine to cool it with water at last. She figures out how to set the sharp edge set up. The depleted Juliet is pulled out, and the generator is begun. It starts to work appropriately, making the whole dugout cheer. The lights come on. Importance life go on. After all that, Juliet goes to Marta, giving her the artifact George found, requesting that she sort out what it is and says it's the ideal opportunity for her to go higher up to begin her new position. She says goodbye to her companions and, turning Holston's identification, peruses the word truth on the back. In the meantime, the city chairman signs her renunciation. Unexpectedly, the lady feels unwell and goes to the washroom, hearing a fall. Mars separates on the entryway and finds Ruth on the floor with a ridiculous mouth. As of now, Juliet comes to the chairman's office and witnesses a contention between Bernard Mars and Sims. Mars is persuaded that the lawbreaker needed to harm him, yet he gave his bottle to Ruth. The men saw Juliet. Bernard is compelled to choose her to the situation without a pledge, as he, at the end of the day, takes the post of chairman without a political race. After the discussion, Juliet goes through the feasting lobby, seeing a solitary man finding a seat at a table. When the sheriff's secretary calls her, the lady accompanies her to the OFFIC and makes sense of the standards here. Juliet requests George's case record and reviews the workplace and the phone from the window of which she can see the tree under which Holston and his better half found their resting place. Then, going to her new dwelling, she again recollects her young life when she grieved her dead mother and sibling, and her dad apologized for not having the option to fix everything in life. Later, she looked through Holston's office and discovers that the sheriff left George's case document in front of him explicitly for herself, and afterward a message comes about an episode with Mars. She races to the center level where the previous representative sheriff is beating a man he suspects of harming Ruth. Juliet stops the battle and leads Mars to the eating corridor, where she educates him concerning her doubts in regards to George's homicide, and that the sheriff vowed to offer her a hint, assuming that he found something. She shows the sheriff's identification horses, consents to collaborate, and takes her to a man named Kennedy, whom he suspects of unlawful curio trading and contribution in the killings. Yet everything closes in a battle, yielding no obvious reasons. Later, Juliet attempts to find the hard drive George provided for Sheriff Holston. Mars encourages her to check the capacity. He then concedes that he had an adequate number of foes who needed him dead. Seeing Ruth's picture on the mass of his room, Juliet figures out the genuine sensations of the man and consents to leave her post after they find the chairman's executioner. The activity movements to the past when Juliet stuffed her things and ventured out from home, Kyotoing down, where she gave Martha a note requesting to acknowledge her as a maintenance lady, supposedly composed by her dad. The young lady winds up in the scrappers group like clockwork. Garbage is D here from which valuable things should be found, and it is exceptionally difficult work. Soon, Juliet is called to Marta, where her dad is standing by. Anyway, the young lady will not return, feeling she is perfectly located in the present. Sims visits Marnes and illuminates him that the appointed authority is prepared to eliminate the new sheriff from her situation. To WH, he advises him that Juliet was Holston's decision. In the meantime, she meets a man in the eating corridor, and Lucas ends up being a Shakespeare sweetheart. Mars, seeing Sims out, recalls Ruth and afterward hears the shut-line discussion among Juliet and Marta, where the sheriff concedes that she found herself a collaborator. Marta reports that she has something fascinating to take a gander at. Juliet vows to visit her and heads home, where she sees an unusual thumping in the fan. Mars likewise goes to where Sumioni assaults him. Out of the loop, the men battle, yet the aggressor takes Mars' firearm. Juliet, opening the vent grind, finds a bundle with the genuine case document of George inside. The lady peruses the dossier when she is called to the place of the departed Mars, where Sims and the new appointee Sheriff Paul, previously inspecting his body. Juliet goes along with them and finds a piece of paper with a rundown of suspects in the dead man's pocket. Later, she proposes covering the couple together as per the sanction. This isn't permitted. But then again, the heartfelt viewpoint will occupy consideration from the homicides. Then a rush to the culmination in memory of the chairman will be reported. Ruth and Marnes are covered in one grave. Bernard gives a discourse, after which Juliet, with her trademark obtuseness, talks about her mentality toward her arrangement, yet she will be devoted to her obligation as far as possible. In the finishing up part, everybody nibbles into an apple, tossing the center into the grave, wishing that another tree would develop from the remaining parts. Giving life. Getting back to her office after the memorial service, Juliet finds a lawman from the lower level, Hank, who is stressed over her, similar to every one of those underneath. He advises her that he is consistently prepared to help, yet her own secretary is in no rush to acknowledge the new supervisor, understanding that Juliet consented to the position just to figure out reality with regards to George's passing by. The lady is prepared to help on the off chance that the new sheriff tracks down the genuine enemy of Marnes, as the adjudicator will nail the wrongdoing to whoever comes along. Then Juliet will be expelled, and their individual will be taken care of. So the secretary prompts, drawing in Paul to her side, who knows every one of the regulations. If not, the lady could commit an error, causing the legal counselors not to acknowledge the proof. Juliet concurs, yet going to the level allows Paul to go for lunch, and heads to Kennedy. He isn't home, and Juliet breaks the entryway lock, look through the condo, and finds a crate with poison and a drawing of Ruth that used to hold tight Marnes' wall. In the meantime, Paul goes to Sims W., who acquaints him with his possibility for his help. Doug, meanwhile, Juliet finds Kennedy and takes him to a protected spot, then meets with Paul, who admits that Sims suspects a man named Ralph. Shockingly, Juliet demands a warrant for Kennedy's capture. Later, she clears up her move for the secretary. Paul got Ralph's name from the lawman, yet when Kennedy is looked through, they will find the attracting toxic substance, making the sheriff look bumbling, and they will eliminate her, placing Paul in her PLAC. She gets back to Kennedy's home, where she meets Doug, and blaming him for establishing proof attempts to capture him, yet he runs and Juliet follows. What is going on is confounded by the start of the rush to the culmination in the hustle. Doug tosses the lady over the stone railing, yet she figures out how to get them and looms over the pit. Doug attempts to pry her hands off. She takes out a blade, yet drops it, and when it appears, she will unavoidably fall. A young lady from the group sees what's going on. Doug escapes, and passers by pull Juliet up. Doug goes to Sims, learning of his disappointment. Sims requests to see the note ready for Kennedy, where he expounds on needing to end his own life, and tosses the man down. Later, Juliet tells the appointed authority everything, and the note found in Doug's pocket affirms that he defined the boundary himself. The adjudicator thanks the sheriff for her administration and orders the case is shut. Bernard apologizes for not believing her, and Juliet requests a 3-day weekend to go down for her things. Around evening time, she again sees Lucas, who causes her to notice the heavenly lights, which likewise move in unambiguous circles. Juliet gets some information about these lights, yet she has no clue about what they are. The lady is worried about Juliet's well-being and discusses the curio Juliet left her, yet she can't concentrate on it exhaustively in light of the fact that her amplifying glass is too powerless and more grounded ones are prohibited by the contract. Marta doesn't comprehend the restriction on working on their everyday environments, as they don't for even a moment have a lift, and this antique threatens them with death, yet Juliet would rather not forsake her new position until she figures out what befell George. Choosing to get the criminal with lure, she goes to the lower cavern and takes the ancient rarity from George's cabinet. Later, lawmen look through Doug's condo, where Paul finds the very toy container that Juliet once found in Georgia stashed. They carry the thing to the sheriff, and she professes to see it interestingly. Anyway, Paul advises her that keeping found relics is unlawful, so she should repo art to Glades. The sheriff, Paul, and Sims go to the adjudicator and on the manner in which Juliet sees the compulsory development of her associate's fingers, which he attempts to conceal. Subsequent to hearing the contentions, the appointed authority expects to close the case, yet Juliet presents the tracked down antique and requests consent to explore Sims' objects, certain that the thing was planted on Doug. To the sheriff's unexpected, the lawmen have an index of curios. They even know the watch on her wrist had a place with George. By and by, Juliet gets authorization to research Paul and Juliet return to Kennedy, who at last names the antique vendor. The pair shows up at Regina's home, who admits that she was George's sweetheart. In the meantime, Sims tracks down a portrayal of the tracked-down toy in the inventory and learns it had a place with George. Juliet is stunned by what she realizes, having had faith in the man's genuineness. Regina concedes that she purchased relics for himself, and it was the primary thing in their relationship. Later, Bernard and Sims visit the study on the last option. Declares that the thing had a place with George, could never have wound up with Doug anyway. Bernard reviews that Doug was engaged with looking through the folks' rooms, so he might have appropriated the thing, and orders the sheriff to quit searching for thought processes in the city chairman and her associate killings. Understanding that Juliet established the gadget in Doug's room, Paul is shocked. She brings up that his condition precludes him from standing firm on a mindful foothold. The man leaves in trouble. Julie D. gives the sheriff an artifact that had a place with George's Mama Kids reference book, tracing all the way back to before the fortification. Juliet analyzes the book in her loft wondering about the photographs of creatures in nature, seems uninformed that a reconnaissance bunch is watching her through cameras introduced all through the dugout. Abruptly, she finds a pencil composed named Gloria on the final page of the book. She takes the reference book and heads to the clinical segment to converse with Gloria, where she discovers that by the Judd home, she finds portrayals of star groupings in the book. The following morning, she goes to Bernard, who concedes getting dangers from the appointed authority, who can track down motivation to fire the selected chairman. So he encourages the sheriff to figure out how to control the adjudicator. Juliet goes to Knowles, requesting an opportunity to converse with Gloria, after which she vows to leave, yet the adjudicator clarifies that nothing relies upon her, and she submits to individuals whose names she can't uncover. In the meantime, Sims, changing to Gloria's room, noticed them out, keeping them from having posterity. She additionally knew Juliet's mom. The Guardians helped her construct some sort of magnifier before her significant other crossed her to the shelter. Juliet charges her dad and takes Gloria to a ward, permitting her to respect the book. One final time, Gloria takes note of the shortfall of blossoms which Sheriff Holston brought and put before the mirror, sorting current realities out. Juliet acknowledges where the C cameras are. She covers the mirror, and realizing Holston checked the VIN to save lives. Getting a call, she heads to her office, which Sims' kin are flipping around. Paul attempts to help them to remember the lawfulness of the hunt, yet they don't listen. Juliet recollects a comparable pursuit quite a while back when lawmen stripped their home around then. The young lady's mom blamed her dad for selling out and willfully gave over the gadget regardless of her dad's promises of honesty. The young lady would not address him in the present. Juliet is compelled to introduce her possessions for Inspect Ryan through cameras. Then a medical caretaker declares the appearance of specialists. Juliet comprehends that the lawmen need to introduce cameras in this office and requests to postpone them since she concealed George's hard drive here. Taking it, she intends to head down, yet every one of the steps are cordoned off. In the meantime, Paul returns home, and keeping in mind that attempting to help his better half drops the dishes, his hand bombed at the most untimely second. Simultaneously, Lucas gets a note from Juliet and hustles to the gathering. She enlightens him concerning UT. Sims affirms that he likewise heard her longing. It turns out all the departed were associated with the most risky thing for the dugout, the hard drive. Julia endeavors to escape, however, is immediately looked up. Some other time, Juliet lets Paul know that she never planned to go external. It was Bernard and Sims who defamed her. He prompts requesting an examination. He drives the lady to the station, yet she, seeing the beginning of an assault, breaks liberated from his debilitating hold and bounces over the parrot. Juliet lands on the lower TN to their loft, where the lady sees a wrecked camera in the corner. Without showing it, she takes the kid to his room furnished. She starts to review the loft and is gone after by Juliet, who arranges her to bind herself to a line in the kitchen. Juliet then, at that point, sits at the PC and attempts to open the hard drive. Sims reports to Bernard that they found the individual to whom Juliet sent a note, and he arranges Lucas' capture. In the meantime, Paul breaks into Juliet's condo and finds the reference book in his loft. Surges there. Juliet opens one of the records and sees a message from George. He figured out how to do this with an old camera and needs to come clean with her. His story is intruded on by Sims' liberated spouse, cautioning that by associating the drive to their PC, the sheriff has uncovered her area. She wants to escape. A looter bunch races to Sims' quarters. When the screens in the observing room begin to go dim, he blasts into the loft, just to find Juliet previously gone. Juliet finds a youthful BU from being accomplished. Juliet opens another document showing sprouting trees and a group of birds flying external. The fortification individuals wonder about the rest of the world, and the sheriff recommends showing this recording to the whole dugout. Yet to do this, they need to associate with the principal framework, which is conceivable by interfacing with the enhancer on the lower level. However, lawmen are wherever Sims goes to Paul, who makes sense of the pursuit of the sheriff's loft by his craving to comprehend the reason why she chipped in for the cleaning. She has gotten away once more, and Bernard understands that the sheriff is traveling through the waste chute. Juliet, without a doubt, drops down the junk chute, and Sims orders her to be pushed to the base, yet one of the lady's bandits cautions her and exhorts plunging into the primary cap. She sees Seeing a metal box coming at her, Juliet hops down, and garbage men figure out how to haul her out before she is squashed. They carry her to Marta and treat her injuries, yet Julia's previous supervisor reports the appearance of the lawman and ADMO go to the stock division head. In the meantime, Bernard and Sims carry Juliet to the perception room, requesting to play the recording of George's last hours. She sees that the man hopped down himself to keep the lawman from arriving at his friends and Partners later, the lady is ready for cleaning. Her dad comes to the cell, yet she can't come clean as the camera is being watched. Lucas is condemned to 10 years of work in the mines for helping the revolutionary, and her partners from the lower level S session the entryway. Bernard closes the discussion and declares the beginning of the function. The lady says she won't perfect the loans, yet he advises her that everybody guarantees that, and afterward they generally perfect as a last solicitation. He returns her the sheriff's identification later. He inspects the messed up drive, which is just harmed outwardly. In the meantime, the dugout occupants assemble in the feasting lobby, attempting to reduce most, if not all, connection with the one who deceived Juliet. The stockpile individuals dress the lady in a suit. Bernard Red shouts that she knows everything, making Sims be confused. Juliet climbs the slope where nobody has gone prior to understanding that the inventory individuals made an extraordinary suit for her. Bernard hurries to a mystery console, and Juliet sees a crushed earth rather than a green blossoming valley. Yet seeing her dugout, she leaves past the perceivability of its occupants. The camera moves and zooms out, showing that the fortification's cavity is encircled by many comparable pit